Hi there, I'm David Blatner, and this is another edition of CreativePro Conversations. I am really excited today. We get to talk about some really cool stuff. I am here with Cindy Alvarez, who's a director of user experience at Microsoft, and we're going to be talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and how that is going to change your world. So this is going to be great. Cindy, welcome to CreativePro Conversations. So good to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So uh, you have been in this AI space for a while. What brings you to AI and Microsoft?
I've been at Microsoft for a while, and I think the common thread has been that I really love working on tools that people use as part of their everyday and that have kind of a variety of use between I just have to get something done and sometimes I really want to craft something and have it be just right. And
Mm,
I'm on the PowerPoint team now. Before I worked in dev tools, which feels like a totally different universe, but is actually very similar in that same way. Sometimes you're knocking out code really quickly, sometimes you're trying to write something that's very elegant and performant. And I think it's really interesting how that kind of tool becomes so close to your muscle memory that even the tiniest changes can really impact your flow, which impacts, the quality of the creative process
mm,
and the quality of the output that you end up with. And I think a lot of the things that help people or hurt people are things that are almost below our threshold of awareness. So you're not
mm,
really sure why you don't like something. You're just like, I don't feel good about using it. And so trying to
right.
tease that out and figure out how do we solve for that in software is something that's always fascinated me.
That is fascinating. I think you're absolutely right. Sometimes the smallest things make the biggest difference. Now, you were just speaking at the Design and PowerPoint Summit that Creative Pro
Mhm.
did a couple weeks ago, and got into some of these issues with PowerPoint. And PowerPoint is one of those tools that is basically ubiquitous.
Mhm.
Everybody is using these tools. Is using this tool. Everybody's going in there, and virtually everyone I know, except for maybe the speakers at the PowerPoint Summit, everyone I know it gets frustrated with PowerPoint, and
Oh,
we
we do
don't know
too.
where we're looking at it. We're trying to figure out where stuff is, and of course, some of that is simply from I'm used to an Adobe world and an Adobe user interface. I'm going to look here, and I can't find that here. So some of it's just what we're used to. And some of it is just that there's so much in PowerPoint, right?
Mhm.
It's incredibly deep. And I know that if could find it, I could do amazing things.
Yeah.
So, so you've been working at chiseling away at trying to make PowerPoint, first the dev tools and now PowerPoint easier, more
Mhm.
fun, and so on. And then AI sneaks in. And of course, everything over the past year, we've been hearing so much that's coming out of OpenAI and some of the other AI tools that are out there. But OpenAI, of course, is the big one. Microsoft is making this huge investment in OpenAI and that technology. And how does that affect what you're doing with PowerPoint?
It actually dovetails really nicely, and it enables a lot of things that we might have wanted to do in the past, but were either impossible or very high risk. So, for example, all the things in PowerPoint. One of the things about PowerPoint and all the other big Microsoft products is that for every single person, there's a limited number of commands you use. And
Hmm.
I think for PowerPoint, it's actually 20. Like the vast majority of people have 20 commands that are their go-to. The
Wow.
challenge is it is a different 20 for every single person.
Right.
And we have at the customer base, you can't say, oh, well, most people use these 20 and this 20% will just have to deal with it because that's millions of users. And
Hmm.
so in the past, we've done a lot of kind of tweaking with how do we adjust the ribbon? How do we let people customize things to try and get around that? We shouldn't need to show you 200 commands if you only use 20. But the problem is it's very hard to figure out what those 20 are. And so in the past, we have been sort of limited to letting people personalize. And the thing is that personalization in every product I've worked on, my entire career, 5% of people personalize,
Right.
give or take. But
Right.
so it's this very small percentage of people. And usually people are not across the board personalizers either. So if you are a presentationist and PowerPoint is your shtick, you're probably gonna personalize that. You're gonna have your own toolbar. But
Mhm.
when you go to Word, you probably don't. Or if you go to some other tool outside of Microsoft that has personalization options, you probably don't. And so what that means is most of us are frustrated most of the time.
Mm.
So what we can do with AI is start to see those patterns and start to come up with like, what is the next likely action? And this just philosophically, you think about if you put an image into PowerPoint, there's a handful of things that you probably want to do next. You probably want to crop it. You probably want to remove the background. You probably want to resize it. You want to mess with the saturation or the hues, the colors. These things we could start learning. Oh, you are a desaturator. So maybe that's something that becomes easy. That's a very specific exception. So don't
Yeah.
no one get mad at me in 6 months when there's not the desaturate command.
Right.
But it allows to kind of say, what is the thing you're trying to do today? And how can we support that use case by kind of hinting at things that you likely want to do next? And philosophically, all of the apps are thinking this way of like, we know there's certain jobs to be done. We know they're different across customers, but as you take one step and two steps and three steps, like, oh, like you're creating a photo slideshow, you're creating a budget spreadsheet, you're creating, this other thing. So I'm really excited about that opportunity to be able to be more like a mentor or a chief of staff sitting across from you. Because you think about today, if you're working on something and you've got someone and you're physically in the office, which is not all of us these days, and you've got a more experienced coworker, they might watch you and be like, why are you doing it that way? You want to try this? Or did you know that this command exists? And, I think when most of us think of that, we think of Clippy.
Right.
And I think like internally we're all joking about we love Clippy, we want Clippy back. But of course in the day Clippy was awful because it was horribly interruptive and it was
Mm.
slow and unperformant. And it's like you'd start typing and you'd be like, looks like you're trying to make a list. And it didn't actually
Right.
even help you make the list. It was just like click on this and we'll take you to help documentation.
Hmm.
But it was ahead of its time, right? But imagine now if Clippy was actually like, oh, you're making a bulleted list. Those fonts are different. You probably wanted them to be the same. Do you want to correct them? Or even better yet, just automatically correcting them? Because who wants a Times New Roman bullet right after an Avenir bullet? No one wants that, right? And so being able to do things like that and do them quickly and smoothly, and also in a way that's reversible. Like maybe you did want a Times New Roman bullet. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to quickly undo it. But I
Right.
think a lot of us spend a lot of time on that sort of elusive, little tweaking or a little like, oh, there's probably a better way to do this. And so I think the field is just really open for all the things we wanted to do. We actually have the technology that's going to enable that.
You know, I love this comment about the probable next step, because of course probable next step is at the heart of a lot of what OpenAI has been doing,
Mhm.
whether it's putting a pixel on the page or it's putting a word in a sentence. We're already seeing that come out in various ways in Microsoft Word and so on. Your
Mhm.
probable next word is going to be this, and it's those little things, like you said, um, a little thing can reduce the friction to make everything go faster. So the fact that you're talking about expanding this to formatting and to, maybe even layout and all of those things, and what probable next feature you're going to use, that just kind of blew my mind. As soon as you said probable next feature, it all just clicked. That could be very, very powerful. And yet, like you said, you need to watch out for Clippy. You need to watch
Mhm.
out that it's not feeling like, hey, get off my case. I don't need
Yeah.
the air. Fascinating. So the thing is that a lot of design professionals think about AI as a way to destroy their jobs. It's like, you're coming for my job. You're going to take away my art or my design or whatever.
Mhm.
It doesn't sound like that's what you're talking about here.
No, and I think, I can't speak for 50 years in the future, 5 years in the future, who knows? But, I just read something the other day about science fiction magazines that were having to close their open submissions policy because they were getting all these GPT authored stories. And they were like, we can tell, and they're bad. And I just thought that was really funny. It's like, of course, it's like if you're struggling with how to write a paragraph, you're trying to write a quick apology, or you're trying to frame something, so that it sounds professional, and you've been staring at your blank screen and you ask GPT, it's going to give you a pretty good paragraph that you can tweak and make your own.
Mhm.
And that's going to be much faster. But would you ask it to write, why I should get a promotion and send that to your boss? No, you would not. And by the same
You hope.
token, I hope. By the same token, if you can get a starter presentation, you can get a starter design, and it's actually going to be pretty good. And what that's really targeted, that like out of the box, you know, don't need anyone, is targeted for that use case of, I wasn't going to hire a designer anyways. Like, I have a meeting in 10 minutes, I need something really quick.
Mhm.
I'm, doing a quick presentation for my son's PTA meeting, and I want it to look reasonable. Oh wow, that looked really great out of the box. And I think even if you're a professional designer, there's a lot of our work that's not, it's not super creative. It's not really, taxing our creative engines. And for that, it's like, why not save time there so that we can make these beautiful things? Because I think there's a
Well,
lot of rules. Like, if you want to be a good enough designer, or a good enough writer, or a good enough musician, it's like there's rules to follow. But the greatest people in any field always break those rules. And AI is not breaking the rules. It's saying, here's some guardrails, and if you use this, you're going to get something pretty good. And I think that's
well,
not most of our livelihoods, right?
well, I think that's true, and I think that to me the key issue is first draft. The key phrase that you
Mhm.
used is first draft. A pro designer could get a first draft really quickly with AI, and then say, "Okay, great. Now, how am I going to make this special? How am I going to make it unique?" Because unique AI can do unique, but it's more rare, and it takes some work. It takes some humans, in my experience, to add some stuff. But there's so much that a lot of people need to do with PowerPoint or other design tools,
Mhm.
even Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, all of those things. A lot of people who are using these pro design tools are not trained in color theory and grid layout and all the traditional things from design. So AI could help with a lot of that. Get it close and then give me more options. I think that's
Absolutely.
powerful.
Absolutely. Most people don't know what makes a good font or what makes good line height, and they shouldn't have
Right.
to. Right? If
Right.
that is not your professional job, you shouldn't have to understand that this font is not going to read as well as this other font. We know this. We can suggest this for you.
And even if it is your job as a pro designer, you can then take that and break the rules because as you said, sometimes it's breaking the rules that is what's going to give it that extra spice. And that's great too. But why take all that time to set it up according to the rules if an AI can do it for you? I love that.
Absolutely.
So AI tools will be able to help us get first drafts. Well, it'll be able to help us uh, find the features we need perhaps more quickly because it's looking at what I'm doing and saying, "Hey, you probably want this next," which that's kind of exciting. Uh, and we're this is all going to release next week, right? Is this all the features are already done? You're
Oh
gonna
yeah, you should have it. No, so I believe in some news outlet, Satya said that expect AI features to release every week. I think if you look across Microsoft, that's probably true.
wow,
Some teams are ahead of others, but yeah, I think
wow,
we are going to start seeing, in the coming months, not a big drop at once, but I think we really are moving towards that. Okay, we're going to put something out and learn from it, and we're going to put something
right?
else out and learn from it. And it's a very different world from, the Microsoft of 10 or 12 years ago, which is every
It
3
is,
years you get a CD.
yeah,
And so then the last thing we want is to change up everything at once and be
right,
incredibly disruptive. So
right.
yeah, you
No,
will see these things trickling out.
I love that. One other area that I'm curious about with AI is another. We also do the Design and Accessibility Summit, which was a couple months ago, and accessibility is one of those areas that designers, everybody, but especially people in the design community, have struggled with. And it seems to me like AI could be extremely helpful in helping create accessible documents. Is that something you've been looking at all?
Yeah, I mean, all that falls into the bucket of things that you can do. You need specialized knowledge to do it. It might be kind of tedious. You kind of have to brute force. AI is
Yeah.
incredibly good at brute forcing. So all the times when you've done something and you've done it again and you've done it again and you've done
Yeah,
it again,
right.
like it can just work, right?
That's great.
Find all the images here and put alt tags on all of them. Boom. I mean, that's the sort of thing that we can do. And again, it is the robots. The robots make mistakes, so you might have to look at them. But it's the difference between approving something, looking at it like, oh, okay, I'm going
Yes.
to fix that one, I'm going to tweak that one,
Yes.
all right, we're done, and cranking them out laboriously.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, thank you for making the point that robots make mistakes. I mean, it's
Yeah.
interesting how many people are starting to trust ChatGPT
Mhm.
or any of these tools, saying, well, it's a computer did it, it must be right. And of course, a lot of the stuff that's coming out is wrong. People,
Yeah.
we still need humans at a very high level to be proofing and correcting, and but that's okay. It can do the first draft. We humans can make it better. So that's this
Yeah.
is exciting,
Yeah.
and I love that idea that Microsoft is going to be dripping. This is going to be a slow drip of features, because first of all, it will make it easier to start learning
Mhm.
and incorporating into our in our worlds. And secondly, like you said, it's going to be iterative. Uh, it's just going to be making it better over time. So keeping the improvements coming. So that's exciting. Well, look, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to get into this AI world with us. I think it is really exciting. This is not about taking jobs away from the design community. This is about empowering, and I'm excited to see that Microsoft is making such a big investment in this. It's going to be good, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the quote I've seen is AI is not going to take your job. It's humans using AI that's going to take your job, which I thought was interesting, right? Because
Oh, that's good.
it's a think of it as an efficiency gain. I mean, I remember people initially who didn't want to use email, right? They're like, oh, this is, it's a true. I mean, not that email is the greatest thing. I have lots of complaints with it, but I do remember there was a point in time where people were like, no, I'm going to keep typing. I'm going to keep sending things.
Hmm.
And it became a handicap where like you can do that if you want, but you're going to be 20% slower than the person who is doing it this way. And I think
Right.
that's what we're really looking at is like, this is a capability, embrace it. We're going to try and make it as easy to embrace as possible because honestly, all new habits are tough. But
Yeah.
I think that it's that seductive moment of you're doing something and you're like, oh, what was that next command? And like, oh, it's right here. It's suggested. That kind of thing is just magic, and I think that's the kind of thing we want to hook people on, and it will make you faster and better.
I love that. Faster and better. We all want to be faster and better.
That's right.
So that's perfect. Thank you, Cindy, so much. This is great.